All right, and welcome back. And in this lesson, we're going to build out something within our HTML page because it's starting to look a little bit blank and we want to have something happening. And we do want to have some more visualizations. So last lesson, we learned how to shuffle the array and we learned how to build the array dynamically. So maybe this time, let's do another function. And this function is going to be called build board. And the good thing about having them all in separate functions is that you can call upon any one of these functions at any time within your game, play, and then make use of that as well. So what we want to do is we want to grab our game board as an object. So just as we did with the start element, let's do variable and we'll call it game board. And let's grab that one. So do you remember how we can grab that element? And I know I'm pretty much doing that right now. We're doing get element by ID, and we've given it assigned game board. So it is important to practice grabbing these elements because grabbing these elements and bringing them into objects, then you can make use of them anytime within your JavaScript. So I usually like to establish that in the beginning, and I did spell document wrong there, so let me fix that. And now, we've got game board as an object that's ready to go, and now we can make use of it. So we've got it as a global value, so that's where we can grab it and make use of it within the function. So what do we want to do? We actually want to loop through all of the array. So let's set up another loop. And we're doing quite a bit of work here with loops, so start out at 0, and this time let's loop through while x is less than or equal to. So use the less than or equal to, and we want to make sure that it's less than or equal to the value that we've got contained within that array, and we had called that array. So let me just finish this part off here. So we do need to, we've got all of the main content sitting in tile array. So we know that tile array length, and this is where we also need to make sure that we're subtracting it by 1. So while it's less than tile array length, and then we just need to increment it. So basically this will give us the ability to build out our board. We've already created that object there. So now we can do game board inner HTML, and let's build out all of the tiles there, and create a div in order to hold it, and we'll give it a class. So within the class, we'll call it game tile, so that we can apply some styling to it. And then next, we want to add in some images. So maybe the way that I'll do it is this way, because I know I'm running out of real estate here. So next, what I want it to do, or maybe the best way to do it would be just to build that out. So set up a variable called HTML, and then we're just going to add HTML. And then once we're ready for game board HTML, we'll just drop that, whatever our current value of HTML is, and we'll drop it in there. So that will make this a little bit shorter, so we don't have to use as many concatenations. So first we want to build this one. And we're going to throw an error there, so we need to have some type of value there. Otherwise, because we're adding the plus there, so if I don't do that, then we're actually going to throw an error. So I don't want to do that, just want to avoid that. So basically that's the div, and the next line is going to be where we're adding, so we've got our game tile established. Next, let's create an image. So img, and we'll give it an ID so that we can link to it if we need to. Cards, and this ID is going to be dynamic. So let's break out of the string value, and let's assign it a value of x there. So let me see if I've got one too many there. So that's so we're building out cards there, and we need to add in an image source. So we've got an ID. Let's set up a source for the image. And the source is going to be located at, we've got a folder called images that we showed you earlier. If you want to see that, what images we've got in there, these are the images that we have. So folder called images, and we've got a cat, a dog, a snail, a rabbit, and a couple birds in there. So we're just simply linking to the content that's contained within there because we know we've got an accurate listing of all of the content. And I've also got one in there that I'm using for the background image. So this is just called back.jpg. So that's this one over here. So let's create all of those back tiles. So I called it back.jpg. And instead of adding all event listeners separate, I want to add in an on-click here. So for this one, let's make it a little bit longer because I didn't want to break up all of these attributes. So we're going to do an attribute for each one. And let's call it pick card. So whenever the user selects pick card, then we're going to fire off this function. So let's pass the number for the card. So break out of the array, and we know that, so each card is going to have its own number, so that's going to be X starting at 0. And this is going to give us the ability to make our comparison because we've got a bunch of numbers that we're passing through here. And if we need to pass any other parameters, I think we're pretty good with just passing that number because then we can match it into the array and we can see what the value of that item is, and then we can do a comparison once this has been clicked. So we need to make sure that we build out that pick card function. So let's click that one, and the pick card function is going to be the one that's going to fire off and do the comparison and flip the image and so on. So now let's also add in a class here. So I usually like to add some classes, and we'll just call it flip image. And then, so we've got all of our content, and let's just close this div off. So basically, this should build out our game board. I'm going to make this smaller again. Save this, and let's go, and as we're building out, so once we start it, we shuffle it, and next step we need to do is build the board. You can get rid of some of these console logs here because we don't necessarily need them. I only use them to illustrate where we are with the code. So for developing, I use them, and I like to always remove them if I don't find them necessary anymore. So let's go ahead and save this. Go out and refresh the page and hit start, and we see that we build out all of the tiles, so the background images. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit smaller for now. So we know that we've assigned a class here, called it flip image. So let's just do in the CSS, and I'm going to make this one smaller because it's not exactly fitting really nice and neatly. So let's do this, and we'll do a width of 100 pixels. So that way it'll be a whole lot smaller. So there we go. We've got all of our tiles, and now the next step is to make it appear much neater. So we can also go back down to here, and I know that we've got a class game tile. So let's get them all aligned nice and neatly. So we've got a class called game tile, and let's add some styling to there. So I want to display it inline block. So when I refresh it and start it, so now we've got it inline block. Next, let's add in a border. So do one pick solid black border so we can distinguish between the different cells. Refresh. So now we're building all of those out. And notice that we do have all 12 tiles there being represented. And it looks like there's something wrong with the way we're building this div out. So let me take a closer look at that. code. And of course, we did have 2 divs there. So we got to make sure that we're closing both of those divs off. And we probably don't need both divs there. But yeah, sometimes it's good to add those borders so that you can actually see if you've got anything that's gone wrong there. So now we've got all of the tiles and we're all ready to go to continue to build out our game. We can build this out a little bit smarter as well into a table, which we're going to worry about later on. So now let's build out the functionality, and we haven't built out that functionality when we click each one of the tiles, so that's coming up next. This is where the gameplay starts, coming up next. And I do want you to practice and to build out your own game board here. So go through what we've done in this lesson and add it into your own application. Practice that looping and building out that HTML and then outputting it into your HTML game board. And next, we're going to get into more game functionality coming up.